Hello guys, and welcome to episode 12 of Jack Reads, and this is where I'll be reading the Thomas and Friends book, Thomas and Friends, Elizabeth the Vintage Lorry. And so, let's continue on with the book. And so, here is the book, which is Thomas and Friends, Elizabeth the Vintage Lorry. Elizabeth, the Vintage Lorry. The Fat Controller liked to send Thomas on special errands. Thomas was reliable and loved to be a really useful engine. It was early morning on the island of Sodor, and Thomas was taking some heavy goods trucks to Brendam docks. His load was going on a cargo ship which was due to set sail at sundown, so he had to be on time. The trucks were heavy, and Thomas puffed harder and harder as he chuffed along the track. He pulled so hard that suddenly, crack! His coupling rods broke. Thomas could not move.
What am I going to do?
Thomas said to his driver.
If I don't get to Brendam docks on time, the cargo ship won't be able to leave.
Just then, the driver spotted an old shed near the track. Let's go and see if there's a telephone in there, he said to the fireman. We could call for help.
Be careful,
said Thomas.
It looks a bit spooky.
When the driver and fireman walked into the shed, they could not believe their eyes. After a few minutes, Thomas could hear strange clanking noises coming from inside.
It must be a ghost,
he said to himself. Then a strange voice boomed out. Do you mind? I'm trying to sleep. What could it be? After what seemed like forever, the shed doors opened and out shoved a dirty, grimy steam lorry. She looked Thomas over.
So, you're having a little puffer that's broken down, she said.
Thomas was very cross.
And you're just an old steam... And you're just an old steam lorry,
said Thomas.
I am Elizabeth,
the vintage Sentinel lorry, said the lorry proudly, and I'm going to fetch your new coupling rods. As Elizabeth puffed along, she started making terrible grinding sounds. The driver was very worried. You're not built for this, he said to her. You're losing steam.
Just catching my breath,
Elizabeth chuffed. Finally, Elizabeth made it back to Thomas with the new coupling rods. She felt very pleased with herself. She had been in the shed for so long that she had forgotten how much fun it was to help others. But just as Thomas was going to thank her, she said to him,
And next time, don't be so careless.
Elizabeth just could not seem to help being rude. There was not much time to get the heavy goods trucks to Brendam docks. Thomas chuffed along the track as fast as he could. He knew he had to get to the docks before sundown, and was in such a hurry that he did not notice that Elizabeth was puffing alongside him. Thomas arrived at the docks just in time, but the Fat Controller was very cross. What took you so long? He asked. Thomas was just going to tell him about the broken coupling rods and Elizabeth and how horrible she had been when up rolled Elizabeth herself. She chuffed right up to the fun controller, looked him up and down, and said,
"Oh, it's you! Have you learned to drive properly yet?"
Thomas was shocked. He had never heard anyone be so rude to the fun controller. Then, to his amazement, the fun controller smiled.
"Elizabeth," he said fully. "Oi, my first Lorry. I thought you'd been lost."
It turned out that Elizabeth and the fun controller were old friends. Elizabeth told him all about how she had been shut up in the shed for years. She had thought she would never drive again. The fat controller was so pleased that Elizabeth had been found and that he arranged for her to be mended, painted, and polished until she was as good as new.
You're the greatest lorry on the whole railroad,"
the fat controller said proudly. Thomas had to agree that she did look grand, and Elizabeth was so happy to be useful again that she stopped being rude to everyone. From then on, she and Thomas were the best of friends. The end. And on the back, we have an advertisement for some other Thomas and Friends books, which are Gordon and Spencer, Gordon Takes a Tumble, No Sleep for Cranky, Percy and the Haunted Mine, Thomas James and the Red Balloon, Duncan, Edward the Very Useful Engine, Thomas the Jet Engine, Emily's New Coaches, Trouble for Thomas, Rusty Saves the Day, Thomas and the Ghost Engine, Percy's Chocolate Crunch, Baldy Rides Again, Thomas, Percy and the Squeak, A Bad Day for Harold the Helicopter, Toby and the Little Lamb, Harvey to the Rescue, Thomas and the Fogman, Percy and James in the Middle, Salty Secret, Diesel and the Troublesome Trucks, and Duncan and the Faulty Whistle. And those are all of the books that are advertised on the back of this book. The end. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time for another video. Bye bye.